Red alert.
Hello and welcome to the United Federation of Reddit podcast. I'm Big J76.
And I'm Smash.
This podcast is for discussion of news and events centered around the Reddit Star Trek community. You can find links to these subreddits on the sidebar of r/United Federation. That's reddit.com/r/United Federation. Smash, what do we have on the agenda for today?
We have something different for you guys today. We're going to be talking about the Reddit community, r/STO, and also the greater Star Trek online gaming community.
That's great. And Star Trek Online was released in February of 2010. So it has been around for quite some time. And there is a Reddit side to Star Trek Online. The subreddit is called r/STO. They've been a community for 9 years. So shortly after the game was released, the game was also available on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which was released in September of 2016. Now we're going to be diving more into the game and of the Reddit side of the community. We've got 3 guests with us today, one of which is Redditor AmbassadorKael, who's a community manager for Star Trek Online. He's going to be joining us later. To start us off, we have 2 members of Reddit Star Trek gaming communities, JRTD753 and Pojodan. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome.
JR, let's start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I've been kind of involved in Star Trek, the series and the franchise since, I was a kid. I'm the youngest of 6 children by far. My older brothers were really into Star Trek and kind of turned me on to about season 2 of TNG, kind of getting into the show, understanding it. I've always looked at it as kind of a mix between kind of a religious, political way of viewing the world and solving problems, and read about Star Trek Online after being a fan of the franchise for years and years on a Yahoo News article, seeing that the game was in beta testing, and had been a kind of minor video game player in the past, but kind of jumped into the game in beta in early 2010 and have played since then for like these last 9 years or so.
9 years. And wow, Yahoo. Haven't heard that in a while.
I know.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
I know. It was weird. I had to Alta Vista about the game because no, I'm just joking. This was after Google came out, but it's I've been involved for a while now and been a fan, and it's a nice culmination to kind of take the universe you've been playing with in your head for a bit, in a video game with other people as well.
Well, I'm not sure if it's going to come through on the recording, but I hear sirens in the background for you. So while the cops are coming to get you, let's talk. Just hide the stash, and while you're shredding the evidence, Pojodan.
Well, I've kind of a similar situation for me. I was introduced to Star Trek when I was a kid by my parents during, I think it was the 4th season of Next Generation, and I've sort of been a Trekkie ever since. I've watched all the series and multiple times, and right now I'm a moderator over at Star Trek Roleplay on Reddit, which is a community that's been going for about 3 years now, doing text-based, character-driven role-playing set in the post-Dominion War era of Star Trek universe, and it's kind of a hobby of love for me and the few other people that moderate it. And we've got a group of about 15, 20 people that come and go. But it's kind of, I do a lot of writing. That's kind of my passion, is creative writing. So that's what I'm here for. We have a lot of fun, and I certainly do. I currently play the captain of the ship, Captain Macaulay, and my other major characters are the ship's botanist, Lieutenant Kesh, and one of the engineers, Lieutenant Ritchip, as well as several other minor characters that are playing in the background, like one of the major villains.
Smash, do you do any gaming, MMO, Star Trek Online, anything like that?
I've never played Star Trek Online, but I have heard quite a bit about it online, on Reddit, friends. I do a bit of gaming, but not a lot of MMOs. No, I'm interested in it though. It just hasn't been something I've had time to do. I'm a little bit older now, so time is limited. But it has been on my radar. I would love to know more about it.
Now, this is the part that really gets me, is that Smash says she's older now and doesn't have time for games. And I think for sure I'm older than you are, and I still play video games. So maybe what have I done wrong? What am I doing with my life?
No, it's what are you doing right? Can you tell me? Because I would love to know how to prioritize my life better so I can just have more time for video games.
Well, and Star Trek Online is free to play, which is something that gives users a low barrier of entry to get into. So if you're wanting to check it out, I think you would make a killing, because if it's free, and also if you were to go into Zone Chat and say, "Hey everyone, I'm a girl," you would get. I think so. Jr. Pojodan, I think she would get 2 million energy credits easy right away.
I mean, yes, but not because you're a girl, because it is more or less a very helpful and friendly community. I mean, you'll see that a lot on Reddit. We have the main STO Reddit forum, but we also have one for builds. So the game has a component to where you build your individual character, where you design what profession you want to be, what race, etc. But you also get a ship. So there are I think just over about 200 different ships that you can get in the game. I'm maybe lowballing that number just a little bit, but so people will share, their builds. They'll say, "This is what I have my engines as, my weapons as, etc." And people are very helpful. And then also there's a bit of nerd wizardry involved, where people want to tell you how you can get an extra 2% in damage. But people are always very helpful, and there are a lot of great, very popular Redditors and podcasters, and even the support for the game itself, who are women. So yes, we would be helpful, but not for the reasons you think.
That's actually really good to know, that you guys have a nice supportive community and help people who are new to the game.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've all been there at some point, when you're walking around and you're thinking that you can take on the biggest, baddest ship impossible when you've just beat the tutorial, and then you've learned otherwise. And so it's great to have people who are around who can, and this extends to, we have, I don't know how much you guys know about the MMO system, but communities of other players get together and build like guilds in some games. In Star Trek Online, it's called fleets. And so you're surrounded by people, and you can ask in a chat, "Hey, does anybody have this?" And there's a crafting component where you can build your own thing. So we're always looking to, in keeping with the Star Trek mythos and philosophy of pulling together things for the greater good.
I was wondering how have you guys changed over the years? What would you say would be one of the biggest events that took it?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. When the game first started out, it actually was pay, and so I think it was a $10 or $20 a month payment to it.
Yeah, I started when the game was released. I started playing it on release. I'm trying to remember. It was monthly, and I want to say 15, because I was playing World of Warcraft at the time and had been playing that for probably 4 years or so. And I remember thinking, and it's similar in price. I remember thinking at the time, well, might as well do Star Trek Online, because it's about the same as WoW. And I was looking to leave that game anyway, so it was going to be kind of even. So yeah, I think you're right, is around the 15.
I would say the big change happened when it became free. Well, first, when people were paying, there was a kind of a slower rollout to content for a while. There was a period enthusiastically referred to in a meta reference as the Year of Hell, where there wasn't a lot of stuff that was happening in the game. We had a few featured episodes. Episodes are named for missions. And then it kind of didn't come out for a while. I'd say when the game became free, and the kind of the economy of the game changed from paying each month to playing the game to spending real world money to buy ships or starter packs or lock boxes. That kind of opened up and changed the economy and made things a lot more accessible to people. People were coming into the game free. You could very easily come into the game free, get the free equipment in the game, and still level up and win. But it became a lot more active, and people became a lot more involved when they started involving new ways of utilizing the economy for the game.
I went lifetime not long after the release. I want to say
Wow.
well, maybe it was about a year. I mean, it's all, all relative. I believe it was about a year. I went lifetime because I was playing often, and I thought, this is a game I will probably stay with long term. And just in doing the math, let's see, the lifetime was, and still is, around the 300 $300. And so I was thinking, all right, so at, let's say, $15 a month, at what point does it pay for itself? And I don't have my calculator in front of me, maybe a couple years or whatever. And I thought, no big deal. I'm sure I will still be in this. And of course, the game was released in February of 2010, and it just celebrated the 9-year, and I'm still playing. So the math ended up working out. But not maybe a month, 2 months after I bought the lifetime, they did the free to play thing, and I was kicking myself, thinking, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah,
and
you still got a lot of good things though. Like, you got a rare ship, and there are other perks that have come with a lifetime subscription, even if you're playing free to play.
There have been, yes. I don't mind the perks. A lot of ships, and saving up the C store, to buy other ships, and which I've done. I haven't played religiously all the way through for 9 years. I probably went about 4 or 5 years, took a couple years off because you're right. You're talking about that year of hell, and there had been some dips in the content where it just seemed like there's not much happening. There's not a lot going on. We had the feature episodes, but it got a little dry here and there.
Yeah, and I mean, that happens a lot. One of the things that has happened with me personally as a gamer playing the game is I've got really interested in video game design, and I'm really empathetic to what the developers and designers and producers have to go through, because you have to create content so frequently. You have to, create ships. It's a business, so you're trying to figure out ways to get money out of people from this free-to-play aspect. And then also with the IP, and I'm sure Pojodan can talk about this a lot more, you want to have people be able to come to this game, like in my case, after a day of work where, sometimes things aren't going your way, or you spend a lot of time on a project and it's not working out. I kind of want to go to something that is reassuring, where I'm like, okay, I can spend 15 minutes on something, and not only do I get a really good result, but when I level up, I get this swirling band of energy surrounding me, and it makes me feel fantastic, which doesn't happen to me on a day-to-day basis.
Well, for my group, it's logging in and seeing messages waiting for someone's written part of the story, and they're waiting on you to input your character side of it and further the current event going on. So yeah, I can very much relate with that.
And it's more on the writing side there with what you do, Pojodan.
Oh yeah, it's all writing, and we've got a few people that have gotten their characters artwork done of them, but it's really is all about just the storytelling and within the universe, and exploring strange new worlds with our own imaginations.
Now, there is a component of Star Trek Online called the Foundry, and this is something that Pojo, when you talk about the writing part of it, the creation part, has your group ever looked into the Foundry side of Star Trek Online? That's where you pretty much write and script and develop your own episode.
I'm not familiar with that because I'm not all that familiar with Star Trek Online myself. Several of the other characters, so several other people in our group do play Star Trek Online, so they could probably comment on it. But I mean, we've We're working on season 4 right now of our personal storyline. We have one of the people in our group is kind of our dedicated episode summary writer. We've got in our Wikipedia, on our wiki, we have all of the episodes that have taken place with links to all of the threads where each event took place. And so, yeah, we kind of create our own episodes and stories and worlds. We've got several custom races. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, we kind of do that.
There have been times where I've come into r/STO and I've had some questions on some things. I've got some posts in there because after coming back after one of the hiatus that I took, they were going to be coming out with Age of Discovery, and my son and I are big Star Trek fans, of course, and we were watching Discovery when that first came out, and I got him hooked on Star Trek Online. He does really well, and there are a lot of times where we play together, and I told him, okay, well, so Age of Discovery is going to be coming out, and I think it looks really cool. I need to get in and freshen up on missions and kind of catch up, because there were a lot of expansions that had come out and there were a lot of episodes. So, and I had already done a lot of them, but I saw how far behind I was, because when I was down there, I would be playing my games and he's playing Star Trek Online, and he'd be talking about the game, asking me, can you help me with my loadout, my weapons, what should I put where? And there was this mission he was doing that was centered around the sphere builders. And there was also a part where there was some of the Kelvin timeline in there. And I said, hey, what's that? What's going on there? There's that looks like a pretty cool mission. So it kind of brought me back in, and I started playing some more. And that was one of the first things I did was went to the Reddit side of the community and just read up on what was happening and what was going on, just to kind of get a sense of where's the game at now. I kind of, in a way, tried to stay engaged with it, had to get brushed up on a few things here and there, but got the lay of the land again, asked some questions in the subreddit, got some good responses. So it really wasn't too bad in regards to the reception there. So I was happy with that, and saw that there is a fleet, a Reddit-based fleet in the game.
It's been great. There's been a great community. One of the earlier podcasts that was done by a group called Priority One, called Stoked, they kind of built a fleet that was just based on fans of the podcast and fans of their Twitch stream, and they get together all the time to do things. So, if you have common interest outside of Star Trek, just like in life general, you can find them in the game and team up with those people as well.
Pojo, what would you say is, in regards to your side of it, there's a Reddit component there as well. What kind of community and perception does your side have in regards to people looking for help, looking for more information just on how to do what you're doing?
Well, we have links on our sidebar that point people to our Discord channel, and that's kind of our center for answering questions. We make it so that everybody that joins our channel can see our workshop channel, which is where we work on our characters and answer questions. And it's we always make a point of welcoming everybody that comes and visits, and encourage them to ask any questions whatsoever and answer them to our best of ability. And us mods are there to kick out any trolls that show up, though thankfully we're small enough that it's been a long time since anybody's come in trying to be deliberately malicious, but that's what we're there for. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter. We have a wide variety of people from all walks of life from all around the world. So Doesn't matter who you are or what you want. If you're into Star Trek and you want to write, come on over and we'll answer any question you might have regarding what we do.
Are you guys based on any? Are you guys based on any type of previously existing kind of system? I know there's a storyteller system that just came out that was popular, and then there have been the older ones as well that were kind of existing. I don't know if anybody else here has any knowledge of what those were, or is it all just based on the paragraphs?
My answer to that would be the books, because that's kind of we write in third person, kind of like how you'd read in a novel, and that's kind of how we write it. Is something you'd see on the pages of a book straight from the bookstore. We have tinkered with processes. We've used random number generators for combat scenes, and we've tried. We've kind of got a process down for creating new events, new stories, but it's really as free form, whatever. Just write, and we'll come up with something as we go. We don't really have a specific process or to it. We just kind of write.
Pojodan, I have a question for you. As someone who, has always been interested in RP, but maybe doesn't have a lot of time to contribute, or just maybe people who are interested, maybe they play Star Trek Online, or they've always thought about role-playing online. What would you say to those people to get them to be recruited to your subreddit there?
I'd say that one of the major advantages of the fact that we use Reddit is the fact that you write when it's convenient to you. Most of our stories take weeks at a time because we've got people that have jobs. We've got most of for example, the command staff. One of the people lives in Australia. Another one lives in Eastern Europe. And several people in the Americas and Canada. So we are rarely all online at the same time. So we just write whenever we're able to, and join in on the Discord server when we can. And whenever we have something to say, it's put out there, and we just have to wait for everybody else to get to it. So it's very, very accessible, and that's one of the reasons why I love it.
And that's great that you make it accessible to anyone in any area, anywhere, because you just mentioned you have a user or users that are in Australia, which is funny. It's a real shame that one of our co-hosts who's going to be with us, Yasman, he's Australia. And one of the biggest challenges we have is trying to figure out the time zones, because he is literally on the other side of the planet. And we've had times where even days, we are on different days. So it's not just a few hours behind. There was Smash. I think you were there this night. Every week in the Star Trek Gifts Discord, we have a hangout, and we just get on Discord and we get in the voice channel and chit chat for a while. And sometimes we'll even do Discord has it's called a DM group. And that's where you can turn on your webcam if you want, or screen share if you want. We'll watch Star Trek. I'll play Star Trek episodes, and we'll just play video games and just hanging out, doing whatever. So this one night, we had a podcast plan. We were going to be doing it on, for me, I'm on the East Coast. It was a Saturday. I think it was going to be like a Saturday at 9 or 10 p.m. or something like that. So Friday night, we do our hangout. It starts at 9 Eastern Standard Time every Friday night. So Friday night, I think it was either 9 or 10. He jumps in and is like, "Hey, we're all here. Why don't we go ahead and do the podcast now?" I said, "What are you talking about? We're doing that Saturday. It's Friday right now." and and he's
Oh boy.
yeah, he's oh shit. It's Friday there. It's yes. What day is it for you? So it was just this complete like, oh, I had the day wrong, and it's the conversion from uh, Australian time to our time was completely different. So yeah, that's challenging when you're working with people that are either gaming, whether it's computer gaming on the PlayStation or Xbox with Star Trek Online, or communicating on Reddit. Dealing with those time zones can be a challenge.
Absolutely, and I know for certain that some people that have taken part in our group have lost interest because of how long it can take for some things to happen. I mean, most of our events do take weeks, sometimes a month or two, in order to go through a whole story, because we have people from all over, and we may only get a half a dozen posts in a week. But at the same time, that just means that you can it doesn't matter what time of day. We never talk time scales or anything like that. It's just all we ask is that people are active at least once every 2 weeks, and that's about it.
Did a lot of this start from older iterations of the internet? One of my brothers, when he was at college, used to do a lot of that on like Usenet or Google Groups, or has this just been something that you guys just heard about and just started to institute just because Reddit is a good place for people to go to as the front page of the internet?
Well, our group was started by two players who were still part of the group that were as part of Star Wars Dark Times, which is another role-playing group on Reddit that's been around for a long time. And they just decided, hey, there's no Star Trek role-playing group like this out there. Let's make our own. And so they did. And I ended up joining in, I think it was like 4 or 5 months after it first got started. And yeah, it's just gone on from there.
And can I ask, one of the things, so like I'll get bored in like Space Dock, like the main hub for players in the game, and I'll like see somebody who spent a lot of time designing their character, and I'll browse their biography, and I see a lot of overarching and tropes. I see a lot of people who are like, oh, he's human, but he was raised by Klingons, or his parents were in the Maquis. As someone who has been a fan, that happens a ton. I chose probably one of the most obscure episodes, the episode that is probably by many fans called the worst, and used that as my biography when I first started. Now I think it's just a quote. But do you see a lot of people who are like, yeah, I really have an affinity for blank, and I need this to be my character? And then somebody else says, I really have an affinity for the same thing, and I need that to be my character.
Well, certainly have our share of peculiar characters. We've got one character that's from the mirror universe. We've got a liberated Borg. We've got, we've got a lot of variety and amongst us. But one of the things that we strive for is a certain amount of, does this character fit into the canon? And so whenever we do a character creation, when someone puts in an application and they're doing something really weird, we might set them aside and say, hey, maybe we could tweak this a little bit to fit in a little better with what we're going for here. And we certainly always encourage new players to play something simple, but then come up with new ideas. We got in fact, our newest character was a species that they created that's from the Gamma Quadrant. That's they have 4 eyes, and it's really quite fascinating.
So that now, if I can do after speaking wonderfully about the developers and designers of Star Trek Online, this is my big bugaboo. So I like rubber forehead aliens. Whether they're Bajoran or Klingon. One of the things that Star Trek Online has done, because it's a video game and it's similar to like the Star Trek animated show, is they're not bound by the fact that a human being is going to have to step into this costume and play this character. It can have, anatomy that doesn't make sense and maybe doesn't come from, the preserver seeding the universe. They've created the Iconians and the Zenkethi in the game. The Iconians kind of seem like maybe a mix of like six-eyed aliens with Thanos, and the Zenkethi are kind of like the xenomorphs from Aliens. And initially, I had a lot of hesitance to that. Again, as I said, as someone who looks at Star Trek as a way that, whenever you meet somebody as different as they are, deep down, they're all human. It's kind of hard for me to kind of look at somebody who looks like a Zerg and is killing a bunch of people as that. But one of the great things about the Reddit community, they reached out to the designers of the game, a guy whose last name is Ortiz, and were like, you did an amazing job designing this. And so that was a nice way of making me reconsider my previous notions of what is and isn't Trek, because people had a really good appreciation for something that went kind of outside the box. There's even a zone in the game set in the Delta Quadrant where you're fighting the Voth, and the Voth's kind of pets are dinosaurs with lasers on their heads. So it's nice.
Frickin' sharks with frickin' lasers.
Oh, Scott Evil would have fit in wonderfully in the game because he's like, I don't see. Or I would have accepted Mr. Burns, the dogs with bees in their mouth. But yeah, it's nice that people have found this kind of niche in their game. And the thing that they've held on to for so many decades and been okay with it. I remember when I was a kid, my nephew came and visit. My brothers gave him static for putting Elmo, his toy Elmo action figure, in a X-Wing fighter, and he had to fight and say like, no, these two things go together. And now I walk around Star Trek Online, and there's somebody who looks like Sailor Moon, and I'm okay with that.
Wow.
Well, we've got a lot of humans in our. I look at our current cast of characters, and I'd say probably about half of them are human. There's a fair number of Vulcans. There's a couple of half Vulcans, some Andorians, Bajorans, but then we got the odd ones like this, the liberated Borg, who is actually a partial quadruped, kind of a bird-looking species. I play a character that's looks like an otter, but they're semi-polymorphic, so they can extrude into about 8 feet long through small tubes. Lots of interesting things. But it is very Trek-like with a lot of humans and human-looking characters, and we welcome the wild and the weird, and we welcome the forehead aliens too. So it's right. All a matter of what interests you and what you want to do, and we very much encourage everybody to do anything they want.
Yeah, see, my MMO characters are usually pretty bland. I try to make every MMO character look the way I look. So, and then I don't spend a lot of time on it. So,
oh, Big J, really? Just how you? Oh man, well, you can be anything you want. You be like they said, you can be Sailor Moon character. Why not? Variety is the spice of life, Big J.
You're right, and I wish I had more variety and creativity. I'll have to take something out of Pojodan's page and maybe try to be a little more creative. And he's actually going to be moving into that creativity and has a busy schedule right now. Pojodan, thanks for stopping by with us. We're going to continue on here for a little bit, talk about Star Trek Online. But for those of you listening, I'm sure Pojodan will be back with us next month. We are planning on doing a full dive into the Trek role-playing community.
Well, thank you very much for having me. This came as a pleasant surprise this morning, and I'm glad you had me. And it was great getting to talk about the thing that I love, which is our little role playing group. And anybody that wants to drop by, we very much welcome you to come by and have a look.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it's so nice, getting to know the community, and I'm looking forward to next month.
Yes, I am too. Have a good evening, everybody.
You too. I just to step back a second. I, like you, thought like when I first started, like, oh, have a character that looks like me. But
it's so boring, isn't it?
Well, the other thing is too is there's kind of a danger of escapism with that. I don't know if you ever saw or if you're big fans of the TV show The Office,
yes,
where Dwight has a Second Life character that is just like him. He wears the exact same clothes. He's a paper salesman, and it's like it's like, why are you in Second Life if that's exactly who you want to be? And in my day-to-day life, I do exert a lot of working in collaborative spaces, trying to find a middle ground like Picard to fix things. But sometimes, after creating like my second and third character, I was like, no, I just want to have a Viking biker samurai Orion, or
wow.
a plucky terrorist freedom fighter Romulan. And so now, as I've kept going, I make a point of trying to create characters that are as far away from me in background or look or appearance, and it's been nice. And then to your first question, it sometimes works. When I first started the Romulan expansion, my Romulan character was a woman loosely based on Katniss from the Hunger Games, and so many people would walk up to me and be like, hey, do you want to join our fleet? Do you need help? Do you need this?
Oh boy, yeah.
And I was just like,
so here's the thing, and Smash, this goes back into what I was telling you before, that you would have it easy playing this game. It's when you even go so far as to having an avatar that is a female, because behind that any avatar could be anybody, but there's just kind of this default thing when you see that avatar. And JR, you have opened up yourself to getting all the energy credits you want, all the fleet invites you want. I'm sure you probably got to send a dick pic or two.
No, what actually ended up happening more than anything else in an odd inverse is a lot of women wanted to team with me because they were tired of having men team up with them.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I leveled so quickly with that character. I should look her up. There was a lady who was like, yeah, I just want to do this because it's nice playing with another girl. And I didn't bother to correct her. I was just like, I need those experience points, so I will do this.
Right, exactly.
It was my own private Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman. I empathize so much when I was being a jerk.
Oh,
you were
no.
Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, JR, no. Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So.
No, I mean, no. The other thing is too is to that point, like sometimes people are just rude in the game. Like the other thing that happened outside of sexism and gender issues is a lot of people sit, because again, like I think there's 70 missions and you get to level 60, and then there's some reputations you play to get equipment. But then, you can be done playing this game if you play every night in 2, maybe 3 months. And then you've still invested a lot of time in the community and it's become part of your habit. You still want to play. And so people go on in the chat room and they'll just start the most obnoxious conversations. And I was actually telling a friend who I turned the game on to, like, I'll see a lot of people name their ships after prominent politicians. There's a guy who made his character look just like Kim Jong-un for some reason. And people will have conversations about what's going on in the world in not the most diplomatic or reasonable way possible. So you've got to kind of navigate around kind of the insanity in this place that you've gone to escape the insanity of the daily news, if that makes any sense.
It definitely does. It sounds like it just any other online community where there's some toxicity. Certain places got to try to avoid it.
Yeah,
well, there is some of that, but there's also, and I think this goes to the Star Trek Online, the subreddits. The credit is that I'm looking at a lot of posts here from different users, and it's not just a bunch of memes or shit posting or things like that. There are some really good thought out posts. And the one that I'm looking at here is, and this was a few days ago, and JR, before we got started today, you were kind of talking about the mood of the of the community in regards to some issues that have been going on, which I think this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this goes into that. This is by a user called Sizer714, and the title of his post is "Dear Cryptic, we need to chat."
Yeah,
and I'm reading through this, and it's very. I agree with a lot of the things that he's saying, and one of the things that jumped out here, he said he's sad. He's sad because the anniversary pack for this year is an enormous drop in value from the fantastic Vanguard pack, and I remember thinking there have been some good anniversary, just ships, packs, or whatever, and this is not the first time I've heard talk about disappointment in this ninth year and the ninth anniversary. And this thread, if you look at it, there's a lot of well thought out responses here, especially the top comment in that thread from Redditor Thon of Andoria.
Yeah, I feel like I know that name a lot. He's probably responded to my thing. Yeah, there's some really thoughtful people there who know kind of how to express their displeasure at something without coming across as whiny. And I use that pejorative in the best possible sense. I listened to your guys' Discovery episode, and there are people who complain about the tone of that show, but they're like, oh, I'm going to still keep watching. We've had people. I generally try not to get too disappointed in the free things that the game is giving me because they're still free.
Yes.
I definitely realize that you're still putting work into, doing these 2-week daily quests to get them. But I do think that there are people, there was a guy, or actually someone, sorry, forgive me, who had just gone through gender reassignment surgery, who had some criticisms about the fact that you can't change the gender of your character later. They had a really good and really thoughtful post. There was someone last year who posted about the hesitation of certain writers that the game brings on. The game looks for more video game based writers instead of short story writers or even marketing writers. I have had criticisms with the game in the past, and I've had suggestions in the game in the past, but we have a really good community outreach person for the game, and he did a good stream earlier this week that was, it was a gut punch. We lost the Foundry, the ability for players to create missions, write their own scripts, write their own episodes, and then have people play them. And that's being taken away. Yeah, that's being taken away in a few weeks. And he came on and was like, hey, I know, we fought for this, and was really despondent about things and really disappointed, admittedly, to himself. And so sometimes that's nice. Like, I understand there's going to be, I just put in a ticket this week where I won something for free and it still hasn't shown up in my inbox. But I'm not going on and just yelling or doxing people. I don't know how to dox anybody, if that matters. But
that's good.
But it's about knowing how to express your frustration sometimes. And I'm not going to paint a broad generalization, but there have been a couple instances where I'm just like, hey, I wouldn't have said that in that way. But more often than not, I think people post like you say, like they're writing a letter to somebody and they're just saying what happens. I always say the internet should be consider the internet your own personal newspaper where whatever you say is going to be put on the front page. And I remember that post, and I'd be okay with that post being an op-ed saying, hey, I spend a lot of time on this game and the quality of what I'm getting is not meeting past expectations. I'd be okay with reading that, in an op-ed section. So you probably know more about Reddit than me. It's all about trying to be respectful, and that up button's about being agreeable even when you're being disagreeable. And I think posts like that kind of fit that mantra.
Well, and there are a lot of posts here on the in the Reddit community side for the game. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit out of the loop. I've been stuck on Monster Hunter World for like the last several weeks. I can't get away from it. I try, and I know that I need to get caught up on STO because apparently there's a new ground-based task force operation on Pavo.
Yeah, that's been pretty fun. It's
and
repetitive,
I need to do that.
but fun. Yeah. And that goes to actually another point. I don't know if you want to talk about. One of the things that happened to the game, and Smash brought up earlier, how has the game changed? Where, for a year or for an expansion in the past, the game would be focused on certain areas like rebuilding Romulus after the events of the JJ Trek film, or there was a year done with Voyager, and then another one with Deep Space Nine, which I remember a post on Reddit by one of the community people saying that was going to be the big focus for the next 3 years. Was they redesigned Deep Space Nine, made it look much better, and we're going to have a lot of content based in that area. And then Discovery came out. I don't know if this is new, and I have no idea what the inner workings were, but now for the last almost year, I'd say, a lot of the game has been Discovery focused, where you can create a Discovery character. There was a Mirror Universe event. There was a Starbase One attack, and then this episode based on Pavo, where Saru goes. And I don't know how I feel about that. One of the things that's great about the game is that you're dealing with a franchise that has had, 12 movies and 5 different franchises and about 700 hours worth of content. And the game has done fantastic things where they'll take like one, snippet of a line, in the alien abduction episode of Enterprise or of TNG, and they've made an entire, mission arc about it. And now it seems like they're playing catch up, where they're trying to figure out what was done in last year's Discovery and kind of making it fit. And I don't know if it seems as thought out or as well done as past things. But again, with all that being said, I've still played it.
Smash, look at all the drama you're missing by not playing this game.
I know. It sounds interesting. Speaking, kind of getting away from drama, since I know we touched about it here, I did want to mention, when it comes to Reddit and STO, what I do notice all the time is the artwork that comes out of there. I see your guys' screenshots and just, art that you guys create. There's a post I just scrolled past here that was where they 3D printed the ships. Wish I had it back so I can tell you.
There's a company. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of them.
Is it Eagle Moss?
I think so. Where if you go into the game, you can customize your ship in so many different ways, so many different colors and whatever. And you can hit 3D print, and it saves that file, and you can send it to a company and have a version of your ship sent to you. And some people love them. They'll put them on their desk and whatever. I haven't done that, although it's not for lack of thinking about it. And then in addition to the artwork, there's a guy, oh my gosh, maybe if I find this in After Now, we can put this in the notes for the podcast, but he has a comic strip that he makes for his character in the game, this little Tellarite. And it's just amazing. It's funny. It's based on like all the little missions you send your character on and the things he does in between these missions. And then there are even like, glitches. There's one glitch in the game where you'll be on a mission and the mission giver will constantly remind or check back in, asking you how it's going. And somebody took that screenshot and replaced the mission giver's head with Leslie Nielsen from Airplane, saying, I just want to tell you both, good luck. We're all counting on you. So,
oh my God.
Genius. It's great.
We all spend I think I probably got this interview request because I like taking screenshots and just nonsensically taking them out of context and decontextualizing them based on what's happening in the game.
Right. r/STO is one of the largest Trek subs on Reddit. So there's a lot of content there, and your community is passionate about what they do. They upload daily. They constantly posting what they think and how they feel things can improve. I think that's fantastic, the passion for the community, especially after 9 years.
Yeah, and again, I do want to say a lot of it goes to the developers who are on there listening. On that gender reassignment issue, a guy or someone who had gone through that posted that they were sympathetic based on their own personal experiences. When the Foundry went down, people were there, and so I don't know, outside of conventions, if other Reddit, whether it's about a particular show or films or whatever, are getting that kind of dialogue with the people involved in the creation, and other Reddits about it as if it were a sermon or a college course. And the episodes in the game are like that as well. From the tutorial on, I think about each one, could take about a half hour at most each night to do. And then, like I said, after about 3 months, you've played all of those.
A half hour is really not too bad for the episodes in this game. JR, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thanks so much. And if anybody's interested, feel free to DM me and maybe we can meet up in the game. And like I said, I really hope the game grows, as the Trek property is expanding with Discovery and the Picard show and possible Section 31 and hopefully this Quentin Tarantino film, which I'm going to camp out for when it comes out. Nice. It would be nice to just how amazing does that sound? It would be nice to have more people involved and be able to continue the kind of thought process that the show has put us in.
More Star Trek content. Pretty excited about that. I'm also excited about our next guest, AmbassadorKael. So AmbassadorKael, and it's pronounced AmbassadorKael, as in Michael. So tell me what you do with the Reddit community and with Star Trek Online.
Well, I'm the community manager for Star Trek Online, which means that probably the biggest part of my job is interacting with the community who plays Star Trek Online. There's a bunch of different places where they congregate. There's our official forums, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, and then there's the official Star Trek Online Reddit, which is /r/STO. There's the STO Builds subreddit, which is STO Builds. Sort of my job is to hang out at all those places. At least one of my jobs is to hang out at all those places where people gather and talk about the game and listen to their feedback, provide clarification where we need, pass on their feedback to the higher ups if need be, all that kind of stuff. That's a big part of my job. And so I end up interacting with the Reddit community a lot because, frankly, it's easier to parse information on Reddit than it pretty much is anywhere else.
We try to make things easy for you.
Yeah, it's nice.
Now,
I love having an upvote and downvoting system. I wish I could implement it on the forums.
It's great. I have gone to other forums, whether it's Facebook or in Discord, and you kind of get that very temporary, like, okay, wait a minute, am I going to get downvoted for saying this? And then, oh, well, I'm not on Reddit. I can say whatever I want.
No one can stop me. I am invincible.
That's how it feels if you need a break from that.
Yeah.
So now you became the community manager, it looks like, in November of 2016. Is that right?
That is correct. And I'm curious what you Googled to find that. But yes, November of 2016 was my start date.
It's some little bit of Reddit foo, I like to call it. If you go to the r/STO and you go to the search, if you do a search by author, say, for example, you want to see all the posts by a particular person, you would do author, semicolon, their name, and hit enter. And what it will do is it will show you all the posts for that user in the sub. And basically what I did was I sorted it by new links from all time and just scrolled and hit page over until I got to
the very last one.
The very last one, which would be your first post.
Which makes sense. And now I'm curious what my first post was on the Reddit. I'm gonna look it up while we keep talking.
Right. Introductory. Just basically, if you're looking for the title, hey guys, new community manager checking in. So I've taught you something, so now you can look at other search for their users, look at their posts, and everything else.
I can virtually stalk whoever I want.
You can, and I can't. I won't tell you how long I had been on Reddit before I discovered you could search like that.
Yeah.
By author, title, on all kinds of things. So, yeah. So you've been on Reddit for a couple of years, playing the game, and I've. How long have you been involved with Star Trek Online? How long have you played?
So I played a little bit at launch, which was 9 years ago, and then I kind of fell off the map with it, and then pretty much came back when I got the job. I freely admit that I did not play a ton of Star Trek Online before 2 years ago, but I've been playing it pretty constantly for the past 2 years. And while I don't have a handle of every math number and intricacy of it, I think I understand it pretty well at this point.
So you've been playing since launch, and that's something we have in common. I started playing when the game launched.
Oh, nice.
Was really looking for something to get me away from World of Warcraft, which I mentioned earlier in our show. That game, it was just too addicting.
Yep.
Found myself spending. It is. Found myself spending too much time with it, revolving my life around raid nights, et cetera, et cetera. And then so Star Trek Online came around, and I thought, well, this will be a pretty good departure to get away from. And it was tricky because at the time, Star Trek Online didn't have the kind of mechanics that you're used to if you're coming from other MMOs in regards to the raids. There were a lot of habits to drop from other MMOs, and there's a lot of polish that the game kind of needed at the time.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely true. Things have.
I stayed with it.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, things have improved a lot over the last 9 years, and our game is almost a decade old at this point, but I feel like we're putting out some of the best content we ever have in the past, 2 or 3 years. It's really, it's really, really cool. Some of the stories we've gotten to tell, especially now that we're linked up with a actually airing Star Trek TV show for the first time. The partnerships we've been able to do with CBS and stuff have been really, really cool.
Well, and that's got to be big for Star Trek Online right now, and especially on Reddit, because for the first time, I'm drawing a blank right at the moment, but I don't believe there was any Star Trek on TV. The closest would have been Enterprise, but Reddit was launched. So I'm going to have to Google that. Let's see. Looks like 2009. That doesn't sound right. Just doing a quick read here. Here it is. Founded in 2005. So I don't know where I just saw 2009 there. So 2005, and I believe Enterprise had just been canceled. So really, Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Online would be the first of the ongoing content, if you don't count the Kelvin timeline movies that Reddit's been exposed to. And I've got to tell you, it's pretty interesting being on this forum with an ongoing game and an ongoing show. And you guys have taken those two things and try to put them together with Age of Discovery.
Yeah, and it's been really, really interesting. I think, as I've mentioned in a bunch of interviews before, we've been working really closely with CBS, closer than we ever have before in the life of the game. And, sometimes that works out to, we get our hands on some things before people get to see them. Sometimes we learn about things that happen in the show as they happen in the show. And so it's kind of an interesting, timeline thing. A lot of people have been pointing out recently that we're spending a lot of time on stuff from Discovery Season 1, and that's because that's the stuff we have, the most information on and can do content from.
Correct.
The most reliably. Yeah, exactly. So it's, but it's cool. It's like, there's a lot of cool stuff. Our villain for our very first Discovery arc, Age of Discovery, and soon to return, Jula, as a character who was given to us by CBS. We had sort of said, we're going to use, a a Klingon female villain, and we haven't worked her out yet. And Jula, who is Takuma's sister, had appeared previously in the IDW comics. And so CBS was like, well, do you want to just use her? And so then we've got this established character who's been used over, who was created in a different medium and now is continuing on in our game. And I think it's really, really cool. It's a kind of synergy that we haven't had access to before, and I'm really enjoying it.
So when it comes to using the characters like that, I know there's probably a lot that you have to do with CBS on that. And I'm glad it sounds like they're being pretty open about that. And it's nice to hear where that character came from, because I did play that arc and just thought this character seemed kind of made up. But then honestly, I haven't kept up with all the different mediums of Star Trek, the books, comics, and things like that.
Yeah,
So
there's a ton out there.
They're almost too much.
Yeah, I know, right? Although less now, it's one of those things that companies now are kind of, you see it with that other Star franchise that we shall not name, too. People
not on my podcast,
right? Companies are really kind of zeroing in now. I think in the 90s and 2000s, the idea was just to prove that story, put it out there, which is how you end up with Star Trek novels that disagree on whether Deep Space Nine was blown up or not.
Wow.
But now everybody's trying to keep things kind of tight, and there are people trying to make sure the storylines all match through all the mediums, which is great because it makes us a little bit more official, at least until the Picard show, makes us non-canon.
And that's tough. And, it's great that Star Trek Online has extended and given us what we've wanted to see in regards to a post-Nemesis timeline. And I think it's great that we're getting another Star Trek show that takes place in that time frame. But for all intents and purposes, from what I believe I've been hearing in regards to the Picard show, is that it starts right around 2400. Star Trek Online starts in 2409. But you can guarantee, of course, they're going to do what they want. They could completely jettison anything.
Everything. And they did ask us for a bunch of information, and we didn't know what it was for at first. But when we first started working with them, they said, hey, can you jump in and, can you send us a bunch of stuff on your setting and the types of ships that are used and the powers those ships have? We sent them a lot of stuff. But obviously it's up to them and to the writer's room and to the really talented group of people they've gotten together, what they want to use from that. And we hope they'll use some of it. And we have contingency plans in place, kind of, if they erase all of us. We'll see what happens. I'm still really excited to see the show. I'm really curious to see what they do with it.
And I'm pretty excited too. I really can't wait. It's going to be good. And it sounds like they might be treating this show maybe as a prequel to Star Trek Online.
I mean, that would be nice. I think the priority of the people there is making the best TV show they can, not necessarily promoting our game. But it would be cool.
That would be. I hope they do that from all the info that they took. Now, tell me about this. I'm going to bring in a Reddit post that was done from one of our guests on this podcast, a user JRTD753, another regular user on Star Trek Online. This was the title of his post. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I like personal endeavors, but could we have more non-combat options like the diplomatic missions, tour the galaxy, DOF/BOF recruitment, and cluster exploration? And I've got to tell you, from what I've played, and I've been playing on and off pretty much since launch. I went 4 years strong, took a couple years off, came back, left, came back, came back when Age of Discovery was announced because I need to get caught up on Victory is Life and pretty much get caught up on the missions. But there's a good sentiment there that it's a lot of combat. Not that I mind, but I've heard that more than once that this game is very combat focused.
Does anyone remember when we used to be explorers?
What's funny? That was the exact image caption that he used
shocking. I've
in that
never
post.
seen that before.
You haven't seen that post, and you picked out
every day.
you picked out precisely the image he used to accentuate that post.
Pretty much that's become a bit of a meme among our community because that quote gets used all of the time, and we understand. So one of the things that's difficult is that the game has kind of a flow to it. It has what people expect. A lot of our power players really go into the game to get the best gear and gear up the ship the best, and then take it into combat. We have attempted and I think succeeded in telling more stories that were more exploratory. The mission, what's it called? It's not Sunrise. It's the first Lucari mission in Agents of Yesterday Artifacts, and my brain is blanked on it right now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
But that we've done that in the past. The exploration system that we used to have, the procedurally generated one, we had to take out because there were just too many issues with it.
That's the Foundry?
No, not the Foundry. The Foundry is a different thing entirely.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit.
The exploration was years and years ago, before my time, that got taken out. But from what I've heard, it was just what didn't live up to what it should have been. I
know what you're talking about now. Yes, yeah. I think it was like randomly procedurally generated. Okay,
yeah, and it was more, as I understand it, it was kind of like instead of being randomly generated like exploration, it was more drop on this planet and kill these random enemies, which isn't really an exploration system. Yeah. And so we've talked about how to do exploration systems and more things like that. I think it's come up at every planning meeting we've ever had about, how can we do this? But the priority is always going to be getting more gameplay in front of the players as quickly as humanly possible. And I think, so that people can have more content to play. And I think we want to get exploration back in the game in a big way someday. I don't know that we're going to have it right away or anytime soon. Just for those reasons, I think the what our storylines do. Because we don't have 26 episodes a season the way a season of Star Trek would have back in the day, or 13 the way Discovery has now. We'll have somewhere between 10 to 12 story missions a year, I think. We tend to do, because we have that limitation, our stories tend to be the big like season enders or like the mid-season finale kind of thing where everything goes wrong and you have to fight the bad guy, as opposed to the nice quiet inner light missions that we all wish we could do. Right. So it's something we hope to get more of in someday, but that's just kind of a reality of the game design.
I don't mind the combat personally. I like all the other side stuff. Combat is kind of my thing. I like the format of these episodes. It really feels like you're, doing a mini episode of the show. And I really like how they've, how you guys have taken threads of other storylines and really flushed them out completely. One of the ones that I really enjoyed was getting more on the little alien thing that was in season 1 of Next Generation, Conspiracy.
Yeah. One of the best things about the way we do this game is that we can take stuff like that, or like the Zenkethi, who are mentioned twice in kind of throwaway comments, and bring them in for big long arcs and fill them out. The balance is always, you don't want to seem like the people who are picking up the scraps and the side stories. You want to make everything that comes in feel important, and that's kind of what we try and do with our stories and with the parts of Trek lore that we mine to tell things.
And I think it's a good balance that you have there. And Now, one of the things that I definitely want to get on now, that I honestly did not know this was happening, but I saw the posts about it on Reddit. So we're losing the Foundry.
Yes.
What NDA did you have to sign to not talk about the Foundry? I want to let's get into that one.
I haven't signed anything to not talk about the Foundry. We didn't talk about it for several months, and we knew this was coming, but couldn't talk about it until the actual announcement happened, which was probably the worst part of my job in the last 2 years, because the Foundry has the best community I think I've ever seen. Just the people who are Foundry authors are some of the kindest, most generous, hardest working, just really, really lovely, lovely people who have built up this great community on Star Trek Online. And there was a very long fight internally to try and save the Foundry. Everybody, our parent company, PWE, our CEO, everyone on the Star Trek Online and Neverwinter teams were working as hard as they could to try and find a way that we could make keeping the Foundry work. And the unfortunate reality of the situation is the way it was set up, the way the Foundry was originally set up, I think 7 or 8 years ago when it was built, it just isn't tenable with the way our games work today. There's the people who built it, I think, made some choices that made a lot of sense at the time, and now don't make as much sense. And so what would happen is every time we would update the game, the Foundry would break, and then one of our engineers would have to spend a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks digging into the code to try and figure out what had gone wrong this time and how they could fix it. And those were weeks that they were not spending creating, new systems to make lives easier in all of our games, or working on new technology for our upcoming game. And it just grew to be too much. And it's really unfortunate because the Foundry is a system that was letting our players tell amazing stories. If you haven't had a chance to play any of our Spotlight missions before April 11th, please go and play them, because they're all, just fantastic. And there's so many missions we didn't get the chance to Spotlight before, everything went down. Because there's so many talented authors telling amazing stories that over the course of 5 or 6 years. And I think a lot of them writers. Now, they're really good writers. Duncan Idaho, who is one of my favorite users, did a mission called AEI that has a whole romantic subplot running through it, which is something we've never done in our missions, that lands really, really well. There's a mission called In the Shadow of Midas. That's a 3-part mission. That the 3rd part still hasn't come out, and I hope it does before April 11th. But
Duncan Idaho, okay, from Dune.
Yeah, that's where he got his name from. And then I think
that's great.
I can't remember who did In the Shadow of Midas, but I think it's XR377 maybe, but I could be wrong on that. I apologize if I am. But anyway, his mission, I fell in love with this little alien girl that you rescue on the mission so much that I remade her as one of my bridge officers for my Federation character.
Oh, wow.
It's the Foundry is deeply, deeply near and dear to our hearts. And I think, I held a stream on the same day that we announced the Foundry closure, where everybody kind of said, Kel seems defeated, and it looks like he's getting emotional about this. And I was, and we all were. I think people were as sad about it here as they were as the fans who were upset about it as well. And if there was a way to do it, if there was a way to save it, we would have. I had a long talk on that Monday after the stream with our executive producer, Andre Emerson, and one of the things he just kind of sadly looked at me and said, I wish we could have saved it. And we all tried. There just wasn't a way.
It sounded like it was just there was too much that needed to be done with it to keep it going, especially if it broke. And you're right.
Yeah.
You would like to focus your resources on the new stuff. Creating that new content instead of diverting resources to fix something that keeps breaking. But that is a shame, and I will really like to try to get in and check out some of those before they're gone.
There's some really good missions that you should try and play in there. I mean, yeah, like I said, there's just some really, really talented, really good writers who made some crazy, amazing things.
Now, how closely, in regards to the input on Reddit, and I know this is going to be kind of a loaded question, and
sure,
I think it's great that CBS even cares enough to have a community manager engaged with.
Just to be clear, I work for Cryptic Studios, not CBS. CBS licenses.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. I got. Yeah. I know it's Cryptic Studios. I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah.
I know a lot of people make that mistake too, and I just want to correct it because I don't work for or speak for CBS, and I wouldn't want to get attributed with that.
Don't put that on you. Yes. So I do apologize with Cryptic. So in regards to the Reddit community, what was the part that told Cryptic we need to engage with an online community? And can you tell me why that one was picked? Was it just by virtue of, well, it's either the most or the only subreddit that is dedicated to Star Trek Online, or if there were several at the time, it's the one that won and got the most subscribers?
So I don't know exactly, because we were engaging with Reddit before I got here. There have been, I think, 4 or 5 different really talented and amazing community managers before me. Previously to me was a woman named Morgan, who goes by Laughing Trendy, who was just fantastic. And excuse me. I think, but I think, like I said at the beginning of the interview, my job is to get the temperature from, hang out and check out all of the community spaces we have. And Reddit is just one of them. And I think it's a very important one. And I think one of the things that's really nice about it, like I said, is it's easier to parse information because of the upvote downvote system. If something is on the top of the front page of our subreddit, it means that enough people have clicked that upvote arrow that we know it's important. If it's on the top of our forums, it just means that somebody commented on it recently. And so then you have to actually go through the thread and see, what the thoughts are. And, so I think one of the reasons that a lot of the developers head to Reddit more than anywhere else is because it's very easy to see right at the top what people are talking about.
It's easier to parse what the hot topics are,
exactly,
and what people are looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good way of putting it, and you're right, because it would seem that now not every good question or every quality post makes it, because there are a lot of factors that can go into if something that's genuine makes it or not. But you're right, when it comes to a system that's going to have a chance of judging what seems to be important or what seems to be what everyone is talking about, it's really about as good a system as any. And there have been times where I've come to the subreddit to ask questions myself, just in playing the game, because I wanted to update myself just on some builds, ships, things like that. I've got the lifetime subscription, which is that's good. A lot of good perks there. And I got the lifetime not long after the game launched, because at the time it was, if we recall, around $15 a month is what the figure we came up with, or at least guessed on earlier in the podcast. And I just remember thinking, well, the lifetime will pay for itself in X number of months or whatnot, and I'm sure I'm going to stay with it, which I did now for 9 years. So I've come to Reddit to get that input, that info and that input, and not that I'm looking to get something that's up to the top. It's just mainly, this seems to be a good place to ask the question and to get that information.
Yeah.
So it is a good resource to go to. And I really like how Cryptic cares enough about it to use that as a resource. And it seems like some of that input does carry over, and that you do work with the moderators and the community.
Yeah, I mean, I had a funny one this morning where I sent a bug that I saw on Twitter over to QA, and our QA lead responded immediately like, "Oh yeah, I saw that on Reddit an hour ago. I already sent it to somebody to look at." So, like, it's thankfully it's not just me, because I don't think I could parse all of it myself on all the different places. But yeah, I think this is one of the most engaged teams with their community. I think probably because almost everybody who works on the game now is somebody who came into it through playing Star Trek Online and just really deeply cares about the game and Star Trek as an IP. And so we have a lot of people who are very excited to be doing the jobs they're doing and really want to make Star Trek fans happy, which works out really well.
Now, do you have a favorite ship?
I do. My favorite ship ever is the original. Well, I guess I can't say original. The Star Trek 3 era Klingon Bird of Prey. So the one that they stole for Voyage Home, which is Star Trek 4 actually, but they stole it in Search for Spock. That's my favorite Star Trek ship of all time, hands down. I think it's the prettiest thing. The one that I'm flying right now in game is actually the Discovery Bird of Prey, which I freely admit I didn't love the design when I first saw it, but it's been growing on me now that I'm flying it and seeing it in motion. Jet, our systems designer who does like all the ship designs these days, she built that ship to just be a blast to fly. And I flew it on a stream with her when we announced those ships and said, I need to get this ship. I need to get this ship now. I need to fly it. And so I've been flying the same ship for years, and I found, you know what? I'm going to try something new. And I've been having a really good time with it.
Right now, I've been flying a Dreadnought, which is the Dreadnought from the series finale of Next Generation, All Good Things, the Enterprise D refit.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I've been doing that one. I flew the Odyssey cruiser for the longest time. The one that
the Enterprise F.
Enterprise F.
Yeah. Are you getting the Eagle Moss ship?
I thought about it. I've been thinking about it. I've really, because I do see all these posts about the Eagle Moss ships, and we were actually talking about that earlier. That Eagle Moss will take your ship and you can send it to them. They'll do the whole printout thing, which sounds really neat. I may do that, but I think what would sell me, and I don't know if they do this, and please don't tell me if they are, but I would like to get my character made because I kind of am boring when it comes to MMOs. Everyone, it's this, you can be whatever you want, do whatever you want, have any kind of character, looks whatever. I make my characters that look like me. Yep. And so that's just kind of what I do. And I thought, this is going to be probably the closest I would ever have of having an action figure that looks like me. But then again, you could probably just take a picture of yourself and do it in real life, not just the SEO character. But
you could. We've talked to the folks at GamePrint about doing captain prints as well as spaceship prints. I don't know that it's going to happen anytime soon, but the conversations have been had. They've seen the requests for it.
Nice. And
somebody did manage to, through a crazy hack, submit their character from the neck up for 3D printing, but they balked at the price it would have cost to print, so they just left it.
Oh, I'm sure it was pretty pricey.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate everything that you do with the community engagement, just with keeping Cryptic and in communication with Reddit. I think that's a great thing. I'm sure that the users like when you come around and seeing you, and just like knowing that if there's something going on, that they actually have people who are listening and paying attention. So now, one of the things I definitely want to ask you before we end the podcast is, have you gotten to work with, meet, see, or talk with any of the actors from the show?
Yes, yes, I have.
Yes.
And it's been so awesome. So a lot of them record in LA or London or New York, wherever they're based. But some of them have come to the studio to record, which has been fantastic. I've gotten to hang out with Chase Masterson and J.G. Hertzler and Max Grodenchik. All when we were recording for Deep Space Nine, we had all of them in the studio to say hi, and recorded some fun videos of them walking around rebuild of Deep Space Nine, and that was a lot of fun. And then, I get to go to STLV every year.
I'm jealous.
I know, it's amazing. This year we happened to be we finished our panel, and then they were doing a Discovery cosplay photo shoot on the same stage, and they were going to surprise the cosplayers by having the whole cast of Discovery show up, which meant when we walked off stage, the whole cast of Discovery was hanging out backstage. And so we got to hang out and chat with them for a while, which was really, really cool. I got to say hi to Anthony Rapp, who I grew up listening to Rent because I'm a huge theater nerd. And so that was amazing for me. At Destination Star Trek in Germany, I got to meet brain. Why would you? Mary Chifo. I got to meet Mary Chifo.
Okay.
She plays Laurel, and she is just the sweetest person on the entire planet. We've chatted a couple of times since then at different conventions. So yeah, it's been kind of amazing. I've gotten to meet a lot of my heroes on this job, and getting to talk to Bartok was a particular highlight.
You are lucky. That had to be amazing.
Oh God, I got to talk to him about fight choreography. I was like, because he was talking about somehow Lord of the Rings and Viggo Mortensen came up, and I mentioned how I don't know if you know, this is going to be a wild non-Star Trek related tangent. Get ready. I don't know if you know who Bob Anderson is, but Bob
Who's
was
that?
Bob Anderson.
Bob
He
Anderson
was the fight choreographer for The Princess Bride, Pirates of the Caribbean, Lord of the Rings, The Mask of Zorro. Basically, if you enjoyed a sword fight, Bob probably did it.
Okay.
And he passed away in 2012, I think. But he. I mentioned to J.G. Hertzler, because we were talking about it, that Bob Anderson had said that Viggo Mortensen was the best sword fighter he'd ever trained, and JG got kind of huffy because he was like, "Oh, well, he trained me," and so then I had this minute of like, "Oh my God, that's right, you were on the Highlander show, you would have worked with him. Oh my God, I have so many questions for you." And so I got to nerd out about sword fighting with JG Hertzler for a while.
So he was on
amazing.
Highlander.
He was on an episode of Highlander with a pretty awesome sword fight against Adrian, the guy who played the main character.
I see his face right now. Yeah. It's going to hit me later on tonight.
Yep. I did a sword fighting class with him at a con, so I should remember his name, but nope.
Well, that's great that you get to meet these people, and that you got to hang around, and that's kind of the dream right there. You've got the dream amazing job.
Yeah, I mean, I did. I've moderated a panel with Star Trek celebrities the last 2 years at STLV for Star Trek Online, and it's been pretty amazing. We did a Victory's Life retrospective last year with Chase Masterson and Andrew Robinson and Aaron Eisenberg, and oh God, I'm forgetting someone, and I'm going to get in trouble now. I know there was a fourth person, but it's lost to me now, so that's fine. Someone will yell at me later.
Well, I think it was last year. Yes, it was last year that at STLV that they had the winners from the Giphy Cat in the GIF Star Trek GIF contest, and coincidentally, one of our moderators in a subreddit r/Star Trek GIFs, she won. She was one of the persons that won and got to go to St. Louis. Star Trek Las Vegas for this, which I thought that was awesome. I wish I would have entered something, but if I had won, which would have been probably impossible, I don't think I would have managed to be able to get away for something like that. But yeah, so that was pretty big that she got to do that, and it sounds like a really nice really nice convention to go to.
Yeah.
Well,
it's really, really fun. It's interesting because it's, if you've been to, something like Comic-Con or WonderCon or something like that before, one of the giant conventions, STLV, as big as it is, kind of feels small and intimate. You can run into LeVar Burton just walking the halls. It's a pretty amazing experience, and I really do recommend it to everybody who is a Star Trek fan that they go someday.
Absolutely, you should. I've been to them. They are fun. I'm going to desperately try to pull myself away from playing Monster Hunter World and get in some more some more Star Trek online. I'm behind a little bit. I have not done the task force mission on Pavo. I've been reading up about it on the Reddit side. But for you, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you do, and really appreciate you coming on here and doing this podcast with us. You're great for doing that.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Well, hope that you and hope that everyone who's listening subscribes to the Reddit Star Trek community, which is r/United Federation, and enjoy this podcast so that you can see all the unique content we have to offer. As Q would say, see you out there.
See you out there.